I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to announce, major spoiler alert, we are going to be going over everything from Season 2, Episode 2 of the Marvel What If series. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney+, check that episode out, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from Season 2, Episode 2 of the Marvel What If series, it's Johnny Rico!
Hello.
Hello!
What's up?
You know, I mean, there's so much to kind of unpack from all of these episodes, like just little things that are really cool. And we were already talking about this in kind of the first episode breakdown, but there's just like little things that we could go off on tangents for that I'd like to see in other episodes or other series built around them and stuff like that. It's just fun. These are just fun. Every single episode, really, I feel like
super enjoyable.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's just like there's little things in this. Like, okay, the first thing I wrote down was I would really be interested if we could put together a Peter Quill, Hope Van Dyne Spotify playlist of just like all songs, because that would be all. I mean, look, Guardians Galaxy Volume 1, 2, and, to a certain extent, Volume 3, amazing soundtracks. Amazing soundtracks. So, like, if you add in some from Hope, like, because she's on Earth all of this time type of thing.
Yeah.
So, like,
hers in her playlist, right?
Exactly. And so if we kind of just, like, combine...
Or in Janet's playlist, like, if you want to play that same Star-Lord spin, like, because that's kind of like where their bond grew, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just really interested in that, and I'm kind of hoping, like... I kind of went on Spotify and started a search to try to see if I could figure it out if somebody already kind of tried to put something together, but nothing. I couldn't find anything yet. But I'll let everybody know if I find something. But no, like that's what I mean, these little things that like from these episodes that are like, takeaways, but not like the biggest things, are just fun to kind of explore and think about, like that, like the soundtracks and stuff like that. But another thing I'm really interested in seeing is, I really think there's something cool there between the younger Peter Quill and the younger Hope that, could have been put into a like more developed in an episode type of thing, because they did, just like you said, they bonded more like over music and stuff like that. But like they are kind of both children of superheroes to an extent. I mean, I know Ego is not a superhero, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they kind of have like
they both lost their mothers too, which
exactly.
was like the big thing, I would say.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, it's just fun to kind of unpack things and kind of just explore like what they're presenting, and then just kind of go off on tangents on that. Like we can spend so much time going on. You're just picking up one reference or one breadcrumb and just going, how cool would it be if we just pulled that out to like how far we could possibly go with that, like 3 episodes more of that type of thing. And I think it would be really cool. And that's kind of the biggest thing to appreciate with the What If series, is it kind of gets the gears turning about like, okay, if that happened, then what happens to this? And what does that do? And then what happens to that? So there's just so much to unpack. But before I get too far, I've already gotten so far into this, but before I get too far, Rico, what were some of your instant reactions to episode 2?
Yeah, before I get into like my first real thought here, one of the things I really did love about, first of all, I mentioned this in the last episode, how the certain events that they use to kick off like the storyline for the episode, of course, like the one little difference in like the main MCU timeline that would have changed that led to this. I like this is the second one in a row that we're getting something based around Yondu. The first one's based around like his murder. But then the second one has to do with whether he, what if he never took Peter, in as one of his own rather than just taking under the ego, which he ends up doing in this. And I just kind of like the way, like, he's a pretty integral character in a few different scenarios
Yeah.
for different timeline events. But one of the things I liked about this episode, what it kind of gave us a glimpse of this kind of age of heroes before our main MCU heroes that we kind of grew to love. Of course, like we've always seen glimpses or heard stories of like heroes back in the 80s and kind of the 70s and the 60s, but we never really saw them. Like when you think of ones like Isaiah Bradley, of course, when we hear about him in Captain America, that's one I always think about. But they did a great job of assembling like pretty much all these characters who were around and pretty big forces in I would say the world. I was in
Yeah.
some regards, or in the world of science, or protecting in the world in some regard. You had your Howard Stark, you had Agent Carter, you had Goliath, Lawrence Fishburne's character from Ant-Man and
Yeah.
the Wasp. I think is a great, and playing on that relationship with him and Hank Pym back in the day is really cool. And actually just having Hank Pym kind of be more of like a you know a focal character, a character that we're kind of focusing on here, and kind of getting to see him in his heyday, and especially at the time of his life where he just lost Janet, something
Yeah.
that we know about in the main MCU. So kind of getting to see him mingle with those characters, and of course how it's showing that classic like kind of Hank Pym where he's just hard to deal with on multiple levels, whether it's with the Shield people or with Goliath. It's just really funny to watch, but it's a great character arc that he goes through when you see him interacting with people like Peter, because he's the father at the end of the day, and that's where he ends up, kind of excelling. So yeah, I love seeing like this kind of this classic era of heroes, including some ones that are still around in the current day, like Bucky and Thor, and just seeing how like the way that those characters have longevity throughout the timeline of the MCU is just a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. This kind of leads kind of to like my big takeaway. So, do you want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick off big takeaways only because what you were talking about kind of leads perfectly into that. I really enjoyed kind of the I mean, we got a very small glimpse of it, but the glimpse that we got of this group that was assembled interacting. And it
Mhm.
felt like refreshing, and at the same time it kind of also, you know, brought back some memories from the original Avengers when we finally had
Yeah.
that full team up. And it was really a cool moment to kind of see them interacting. And just like you were saying with with Hank and the way he was kind of, I almost looked at him as kind of the Tony Stark Iron Man
Yep.
kind of like role type of thing, where he was kind of smartass and like you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just
Troubled
funny.
troubled scientist with a lot of potential.
Right.
Yeah.
But like we had and we had Lawson, and Lawson was kind of like a Black Widow character type of thing, where she was kind of jumping out of planes and stuff like that with like
Right.
no idea how this is gonna how I'm gonna survive this. She's just jumping out type of thing. But yeah, I just really liked that. Like I said, I mean we're talking about episodes that are like 28 minutes and stuff like that. So it's very small moments of this, but I did really enjoy kind of seeing that and kind of bringing back that sense of the original team up, even though this was kind of different. Obviously it's different characters and different scenario in general and stuff, but it did really it reminded me of that feeling that we got originally when we had the original Avengers team up type of thing, where everyone kind of we saw how they would interact. And it's really cool that they were able to kind of put those characters in those shoes, interacting with characters that they maybe never had would have in the main MCU timeline type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's so many different levels to these people interacting, especially like Bucky and Howard Stark. Like holy
Yeah,
shit.
it's only said like a few years before that, like inevitably would happen, and it's only set like a year before Lawson would actually die at the hands of Yonrog, I believe. I forget how that whole scene goes in Captain Marvel. But yeah, it's enough familiarity with like the main MCU timeline of how when things start to go down, and like just before it all happens, but like it's all characters that we've grown to know in more recent projects too, I would
Yeah.
say. So it's yeah, it's a cool little kind of blending of the two
Yeah.
worlds for sure.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job of that. I think that was awesome. And just kind of like what I was saying with, in the last episode, where I really would like to see something kind of moving forward with why can't I think it with Nebula.
Yeah.
What I was saying, I'd really like to see if they could, make something around her moving forward. I would love to see kind of this written out and kind of had this kind of just be an alternate reality, but have its own series type of thing with this group of Avengers. Like
Mhm.
that would be really cool to see something like that. I think that'd be
Set in
really
the
interesting.
'80s too, like here we are going. They're harkening back to the '80s references with all these characters. Of course, the interaction with Hope and Peter, where he's I'm American, born in USA, and like they're doing all that stuff. And of course, you put Michael Douglas in there, who's another great '80s actor himself, and
Yeah,
everything just feels like a great homage to the '80s right now.
absolutely. But Rico, what's some of your takeaways?
Okay, yeah. So there's a couple things in this episode I really liked. The first one's just like a really cool Easter egg, and it's kind of like a reveal at the same time because I would imagine this is how it plays out in the main MCU timeline as well. But we learned like in this kind of passing line, we forgot to mention T'Chaka's role in the episode at all. We mentioned everybody else but him, but a great way to incorporate the Black Panther character without having to go to T'Challa now that we don't have Chadwick Boseman anymore. But if you do these past stories and showing that T'Chaka was kind of doing his thing all around the world, and also played by the same actor who played young T'Chaka in the first Black Panther, which is really cool.
Oh,
I always love when they're able to bring the actors back to actually do the voices. Like if you go after the first episode, like they couldn't get Glenn Close to play Nova Prime, which is like understandable, but it's always nice when they can go above and beyond and actually get the actors to come back and do
yeah.
the roles. A lot more, some of them are a lot more attainable than others, but it's always really cool. But we learned in that episode that that the shield that Captain America's original shield was actually given to them as a gift by T'Chaka's father, whose name is Azuri in the comics. And if you don't know, in the comics, that there's actually this really cool little arc where I think it's called Flags of Our Fathers, where Captain America actually fights alongside Azuri, and when he was the Black Panther. And I think that'd be a cool, like, kind of like a what if storyline, or even like a separate show. Like if you did like a Captain America and the Howling Commandos style animation show, you could do storylines like that. So I thought that was a really cool little reveal slash Easter egg, like just kind of knowing that, like, oh, they didn't steal that vibranium from Wakanda, like they actually received that as a gift from them, and that's why someone like Captain America is able to wield that with no issues at all. Like no one's ever gone to him and be like, "Hey, give us that back."
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that's really cool. But uh, man, what I love about this show a lot is one, the art of the show is really cool. Like the way it uses like just shading and all that is kind of different from your usual animation shows. But there's one shot in particular here where at the end when Peter does his great my mom calls me Star Lord line, and he does the little handgun, and then boom, he does like the freaking like Kamehameha blast on Ego. I absolutely love just like that big shot where it's just kind of like showing this perspective behind Peter and him just showing like shooting this big blast, like a beaming blast at Ego. It's just one of my favorite shots of the entire episode. But there's some really amazing artistic shots in here, like when Thor's taking out all the little Ego minions, and he like, kind
Yeah.
of parsed them out like the Red Sea. Like there's some amazing shots in this, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there were so many cool just yeah. I mean, DBZ is the perfect thing that I could think of. Like you said it, you hit the nail on the head on that one. That's
Yeah,
perfect. But yeah, I mean, totally in agreement. I mean, I've always liked the Star Lord character, and I'm always kind of interested to kind of see extra twists on this, and because I mean, we got we got in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we realize that Peter has powers, and then immediately by the end of the movie, no more powers. So it's
a
really
god.
cool
Yeah,
to kind of to have a period of time now in this kind of arc, at least, where we have Peter with powers and him wielding them and stuff like that, and being able to kind of take on Ego and stuff. So it was really interesting. It's really cool to see. You want to get to some predictions?
yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off predictions?
Okay, really, the only thing I can really say from this episode is that this really only like reaffirms my desire for the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out to be set in like the past, and I would almost like to see like the Fantastic Four be like the actual first family of the MCU. Like, of course, Captain America is kind of like the first Avenger, but I want to see like this first team of heroes actually be the Fantastic Four when they were operating maybe in the '70s before, like under the radar, but still interacting with some of these characters. Like I'd like to see Reed Richards interacting more with the Howard Stark almost as opposed to a Tony, even though you're seeing him interact with Tony today would have been great. But um, I would like to see some kind of like way where like they start off in the 70s and then they got lost in the oh man, I'm already forgetting the name of the negative
Quantum?
zone.
Oh,
Negative zone, which is like kind of like their version of it. Like yeah, the quantum realm could be another place. Like there's so many different dimensions they can be stuck in the MCU. And then they somehow end up back in like present day. So like they could be also people out of time. So that'd be I think I don't know. I'm just really excited to see the Fantastic Four. I think, and that's only when I was like thinking about the Fantastic Four being like set in like the 60s back before like it was even announced. I was like, oh, that would have been really cool. So I was like, when I saw that final shot of all of them walking Avenger style, I'm like, just imagine the Fantastic Four are in there too.
Yeah,
that's it.
I'm excited for Fantastic Four, and look, I would be just as happy to kind of see the movie start back there. I mean, we have plenty of ways that we could explain for them to be in present day and not have been like 100 years old. Like, you know what I mean? We have plenty of ways to explain that away, type of thing, and to kind of give them the fish out of water or out of time kind of moniker type of thing to it. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I really can't wait until we kind of can get to Fantastic Four and maybe even Doctor Doom and stuff like that. But I mean, kind of just going off of that, going off exactly what you said towards the end, I love the way this episode ended, and I would really like to kind of see. I'm going to say sequel only because I'd like to see a follow-up episode to this where they actually go to the planet Ego and, finish him off basically, but work more as a team. Because like I said, I really liked that dynamic. I wanted more of this. And even if that, like, if they, had to do stuff along the way or they weren't able to defeat him at first and they had to, go back and get more people and you know what I mean? Like, I would like to see a branch of What If for this, like maybe like a 4-episode arc or a 5-episode arc of them building up resources to go there and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. I just like that. At the end of the day, I just liked this team up, and I would enjoy seeing more of it, type of thing. Yeah, like that's all I'm really getting at is I would just like to see a little bit more with this team itself and kind of this pocket where they've already had it, type of thing. And that's what's kind of not only cool about the What If series, but what's cool about the fact that we have multiverse stuff is we can have the potential of things kind of all happening at the same time and not really be the same thing, if that makes any sense at all. But we can have that and have that be a storyline and have that not be the main MCU storyline at all, because we obviously know that that didn't happen in our main MCU IRL storyline. But it's just really cool that we can have that option of things happening. So
right.
I would really like to see that. And just as much I would really like to see Fantastic Four. I can't wait. I can't wait for both. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 2? And do you think we are going to get a follow-up with this Avengers team? And, could we potentially get a series? Well, I'm going to ask that after every single episode because there's just little things that I feel like we could turn into other series and other branches of What If and stuff like that, just like Marvel Zombies. Anyway, the sky's the limit. There's no wrong answers. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.